the second day of our annual conference here at IRDIS, the Institute for Interreligious Dialogue and Islamic Studies at Tangaza University College. Together with the Institute for Social Transformation, also at Tangaza University College, we have this year's edition of the TACSPA conference, the Tangaza Annual Conference on Sustainable Peace in Africa. This is the 4th edition, and this year we are dealing with religions as bridge builders or roadblocks in elections in East Africa and the Horn. Before I hand off to our moderator of the first session today, just some housekeeping announcements. This session is recorded and it is live streamed on YouTube as well. The session takes 2 hours, including the question and answer session, but we will walk you through that program together. In case you have any questions, kindly write them into the Q&A session. And for all the speakers and moderators, when you're not speaking, kindly mute yourself, because that reduces the background noise significantly in the overall recordings and also in the overall live streams. I would like to introduce to you now the moderator of the first session, Ms. Milka Bosibori Momani. She holds a bachelor's degree in Peace and Conflict Studies from African Nazarene University and is currently finishing her master's program in Peace, Security and Governance there as well. She is serving as the IRDIS administrator since 2017. So many of you, either the speakers or the people in attendance, have known her in one way or another, mostly via email, but we are very glad that she is moderating this session for us. So without further ado, please enjoy the second day of our conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthias, for that introduction. In this session, we are going to discuss sub-theme 3. The title of the sub-theme is Religion as a Factor of Marginalization or Empowerment in Electoral Processes. Gender inequality and discrimination based on different factors such as ethnicity, religion, age, or disability in society and in politics have a negative impact on women's, youth, and minorities' participation, representation, and leadership in election and influence democratic processes and societies at large. In various roles as voters, candidates, journalists, civil society representatives, and electoral administrators, they frequently face social, physical, psychological, economic, and cultural obstacles and violence that hinder the full exercise of their agency. Traditional understanding of gender roles, gender-based stereotypes and attitudes, as well as the male-dominated model of politics has been placed at the intersection of religions and politics and tend to undermine the value of women's, youth, and minorities' contribution to elections. Critically, reflecting on the role of religions to elevate inclusive elections by using their power to bring people together instead of excluding them in decision-making processes will be the focus of this session. At this stage, allow me to introduce our 3 competent panelists. Our first panelist is Ms. Rahma Ghulam Abbas, who is a female Muslim who resides at the coast of Kenya. She has worked on promoting and protecting human rights and civil liberties for the last 15 years. She is the founder and CEO of Muslim Women Advancement of Rights and Protection. Before her current position, she was the Deputy Executive Director of Muslim for Human Rights, famously known as Muhuri, where she worked for 13 years. Her passion for a just society for women and girls led to founding MWARP in 2019, whose vision and mission is a just society where women and girls realize, embrace, and enjoy their full rights and dignity. Rahma holds a bachelor's degree in arts and social sciences, but specialized in finance during her master's degree. Welcome, Rahma.
Thank you so much, Milka, for that introduction. I will go straight to my presentation. about the role of religious institution in elections. So I'll just give a brief history. Religious leaders and religious organizations have historically played important roles in promoting social cohesion and social change in Kenya. Kenya has experienced many forms of conflict and insecurity, including cycle of political violence around presiding elections. Religion in the country has served both to unite and divide at different levels. A comprehensive study on social cohesion finds that while religious institutions often unify ethnic groups at the local level through shared religious practices and experiences, and through service provision, they are more likely to generate social fragmentation and intergroup mistrust at the national level. When we look at the independence, the struggle for independence, African Independent Church played a key role in assisting colonialism. However, they were organized along ethnic lines, similar to political parties at that time. For instance, the post-colonial era, religious leaders and interdenominational Christian association, e.g. clergy from mainline Pentecostal Protestant denominations, under the umbrella body of the National Council of Churches of Kenya, NCCK, Catholic Church leadership through its senior-most leadership or through the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops became very vocal in their demands for multi-party elections, achieved this in 1992. Secondly, Pentecostal during the 1980s and 1990s were instead closely aligned with the KANU, that is Kenya African National Union, and President Moi supporting the regime against the protests of civil society mainstream church. Religious leaders of the mainstream churches also subsequently became less vocal about democratic abuses during the Kibaki and coalition government areas. Likewise, in Africa, the Kenyan clergy is intimately involved in politics. Nevertheless, clergy hardly ever tried to join politics. In 2007, for instance, a popular leader of the Pentecostal movement, Bishop Pius Muiru, head of the Maximum Miracle Ministries, ran in the presidential election but did not attract a large following. Similarly, in the legislative elections, only 2 religious leaders were elected. That is Margaret Wanjiru, the Starehe MP, who led the Jesus is Alive ministry, and a Pentecostal outfit based in Nairobi, Reverend Mutava Musinyi, who was the Gachoka MP. Who was the NCCK Secretary General. On the other hand, Parliament Bishop Stephen Ondiek, member of the New Traditional Church Legio Maria, and Pastor Akaranga lost their seats. For instance, also the Orange Democratic Movement then nominated a religious leader, Sheikh Dor Mohammed, the chairman of the Council of Imam and Preachers of Kenya, the first imam to enter parliament. The coast in particular seemed to be the province to woo by those with presidential elections. The Muslim faithful have traditionally voted for the presidential candidates who went to win the elections, except in 2007, if the elections results are anything to go by. Throughout the election campaigns, political leaders spend long periods of time in the big towns of coast. The main 2 coalitions, that is currently the Azimio and the UDA, demonstrating their influence and support in the region by holding massive rallies. Muslims in 2007, after several grievances, Muslims were bribed into election by making Idul Fitri, which is after Ramadan, becoming a 13th public holiday recognized by the Kenyan government. Similarly, in order to address Muslim issues living in Kibera, an area where Raila Odinga's constituency, then Kibaki officially declared, let me give due to the deceased, our Honorable Kibaki, officially declared Nubians one of the country's ethnic group. During the post-election violence in 2007 and 2008, religious leaders and interreligious institutions divided along ethnic lines and failed to speak out against ethnic violence. Moreover, many appeared to have played ethnic politics themselves in the lead up to the violence, which contributed to a further erosion of legitimacy among religious leaders to speak against state abuses and ethnic politics in support of social cohesion. I believe we all remember what happened in 2007, 2008 in the Kiambaa Church, and we do not want to go there in this 2022 general election. However, a lesson learned for our religious institutions and leaders and councils, the aftermath of the 2007-2008 general election, electoral violence, taken a large degree of ownership over initiative for peace building and intergroup reconciliation, creating the space for and supporting each initiative. A report by the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission of Kenya finds, for example, that church leaders and elders participated in incitement of ethnic-based violence, particularly during the 1992 and 2007 general election. This is from a report by Cox and Lu 2014. The failure of churches in Kenya to speak out against corruption has also contributed to discontent and undermine their credibility and ability to foster cohesion on a national scale. So I'll give religious institutions or council the legitimacy to prevent electoral violence. Interreligious institutions and interreligious councils are well established and generally respected across Kenya. For example, the National Council of Churches in Kenya regularly publishes its position on key political issues such as election and institutional appointment. Secondly, at the local level, there also appears to be very high level of willingness to engage in local intra-religious dialogue. Many religious institutions in Kenya are grassroots based and have the potential to reach many and communicate peace messages. I'll give a brief about peace building efforts by religious actors in 2013, 2017, and currently. Religious actors have been doing peace messaging after having been silent for almost a long time after the 2007-2008 election violence. Religious leaders and institutions spoke about violence and in defense of justice and human rights. Catholic bishops also supported the inter-party dialogue that eventually led to unity of government. This also contributed to the 2013 general elections, which were heavily involved in peace, rallies, and caravans. Secondly, interreligious forums spoke out against political leaders, including an NCCK initiative to mobilize Kenyans in all administrative positions to support the prosecution of leaders who had instigated the post-election violence. Thirdly, inter-ethnic and interfaith dialogues. For example, the NCCK has supported inter-ethnic and interfaith dialogue at the grassroots and national level, helping communities to understand political processes and expose them to countries that have experienced conflicts. Religious language and symbolism. In 2013, for instance, Catholic bishops supported the inter-party dialogue that eventually led to the Jubilee Coalition and Unity Government. Neo-Pentecostal and born-again language has become very prominent and was adopted by Jubilee Alliance in 2013. Pastors repeatedly blessed candidates, that was then Kenyatta and Ruto, and recently we have also seen churches blessing DP route. What are the challenges to the role played by religious institutions during elections? Religious leaders have not been able to create social cohesion because of lack of moral authority. They are being viewed as partisan, pro-incumbent, and some are pro-opposition. This we have seen clearly by some churches taking a partisan position with the different alignments with the political parties. The religious leaders are also being claimed to go to bed with political allies. Kenyan religious leaders do have a history of endorsing certain political candidates or policies. Thirdly, factors that undermine interfaith collaboration include at the national level has been by the tension between Muslims and Christians over the Qadhi's issue. We remember in 2010 when we went to the ballot for the referendum, this became a contested issue, the issue of why Muslims have a special court. An organizational hindrance to effective interreligious institution is a mismatch in the internal bureaucracies of particular denominations. Problems with perceptions of impartiality, religious leaders have attempted to restore their lost positive image and credibility due to charges of partisanship. Nonetheless, Kenya remains skeptical over the impartiality of religious leaders. For example, here in Mombasa, there are specific mosques that we know actually speak about advocating for certain political parties. So that's such kind of instances, or they create problems in terms of impartiality for the religious institutions. Muted debates and preservation of the status quo, the extensive peace messaging promoted by religious leaders and other actors has had the negative effect of suppressing dissenting opinions and discussion of grievances. And lastly, the religious institutions need capacity building and funding. Peace building programs that engage religious leaders are often underfunded, but also when there's a crisis, the first to get cut when donor priorities shift. So what do we learn what are the lessons that we are learning in engaging religious leaders? There are various factors that contribute that could strengthen the role of religious leaders in preventing electoral and political violence, and initiatives designed to engage. One, we need to do conflict analysis. It is essential to engage in conflict analysis in order to mitigate the risk of improper or ineffective engagement with the religious actors. This is from a report by USAID by the name Fomunyo. And then the second thing is flexibility. A flexible approach should be adopted in identifying religious leaders capable of playing a significant role. Initiatives themselves should also be afforded flexibility in terms of methodology. Thirdly, we need to engage a diverse range of leaders. The engagement of higher ranking religious officials can be critical to engagement at the local level. As lower ranking religious leaders often take their cue from them. There is also a need to widen engagement of religious actors beyond the focus of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, and to engage with more leaders that have expertise in interfaith dialogue or to seek interreligious partnerships. Moderate religious leaders should also be supported. We need to focus not only on leaders, but also grassroots. Various scholars emphasize the value of engaging faith-based grassroots actors in whole indigenous communities rather than solely religious leaders. A focus on a leader is also likely to ignore the voice of women, since most organized religious institutions are male-dominated. Fourth, impartiality is very important. Impartiality and neutrality of religious leaders, institutions, and councils should be promoted such that they can be in a strong position to promote peaceful conduct and act as impartial arbitrators where needed. Again, we need to take time and build trust. Religious leaders may be reluctant to or skeptical to engage in programming. Actors seeking to engage religious leaders need to make efforts at the outset to establish confidence and trust and to build a sound partnership. Moreover, attention to capacity building. We need to pay more attention to capacity building of religious leaders. Many religious leaders require assistance and training to engage them in networking activities, campaigning, training, electoral observation and monitoring, conflict prevention and reconciliation. Moreover, interfaith dialogue is also important in some situations. Intrafaith dialogues must precede interfaith dialogue in order to mentally prepare groups for engaging with the other. Interreligious peace-building efforts must be holistic. Interreligious dialogue efforts have often failed to address underlying social inequalities and have remained disconnected from other forms of peace building. Many initiatives, while effective at the local level, need to find ways to influence development at sub-county, county, subnational, and national level. Adopting inclusive language, framing programs in secular language may in some situations be perceived as threatening or may not resonate well with religious leaders. In addition, religious-based peace initiatives can be enhanced through the selection of religious texts by religious leaders, particularly use of scripts in other religions. And lastly, expanding programming selection the range of programming that engages religious or religious actors directly has relatively limited and could benefit from more creative and innovative programming. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Rahma, for the wonderful presentation. To our participants, our third panelist, Mr. John Green Otuga, will not be able to join us. He is having a flu, and we hope that he will get well soon. Now, to our second panelist, we have Professor Mary Getui. Professor Mary Getui is a lecturer at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa in the Department of Religious Studies. She has previously served under various capacities at the Kenyatta University. She has researched widely and published in the areas of education, religion, and gender. She is involved in community service and church initiatives that focus on the family with special interests in children, youth, and women. Mary has also keen interest on the challenges that contemporary Africa has to grapple with as relates to culture, globalization, and the rural migration. To our participants, kindly use the Q&A section to ask your questions or to share your comments. We will have a Q&A session after all the panelists have presented. If you are shy, you can use the chat box. Let us interact and make this session lively. Welcome, Professor Mary Getui.
Hello and good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
I also have a flu, but mine is coming to an end. So I'm sorry our other panelist is not able to join us. Thank you very much, the one who has gone before me. And I'm also grateful for this opportunity to interact in this way. I think this is a very timely conference because we are in the mood of campaigning, and we can see the heat that is all around us. The coming in of Mother Karua is changing the equation on issues politics in our country. And when we are talking about marginalization, then she comes in as a woman, the first in the position that she has now. And I think it's good for us to watch that space. Now, just today in the nation, there's, it just caught my eye this morning that in choosing running mates, I think this is for the governors, there are various issues that they are looking at. They are looking at gender, age, profession, experience, charisma, fame, ethnicity. Interestingly, religion is not mentioned, but as I'm going to share in our presentation, religion touches on all these aspects. I want to start by saying that marginalization is, could I say, is part and parcel of our lives. We marginalize and we are marginalized for various reasons. Marginalization meaning that I'm disadvantaged or I disadvantage another person because of various factors. And I think these have already been mentioned in what we have in the nation this morning. But when we look at it as related to politics and the electoral process, we have specific issues that we want to look at. And the first one is that religion in itself marginalizes us because we have different beliefs. And if we do not take effort to try and understand why is the other person different from me, why do they believe in what they do, then we look at them as different. And we even look at ourselves as the superior. And so religion in itself marginalizes generally. But when it comes to politics and in the electoral process, we see that it manifests yet still. In the society, we have segments. And these segments could be because of gender, because of age, because of our abilities, because of our professions, because of our social status. And when we look at our society, I think it's good to go back into history, go back into our traditions, go back into our culture, and ask how did culture, which from the African perspective, my friend who has just presented, then we are equal. We are not Muslim, we are not Christian, but we are governed by African cultural values. There were no electoral processes as we know them today, but there was governance. And I'm looking at electoral process as a governance issue. But a lot of times we narrow it down to campaigns. As I said earlier, there's a lot of heat right now, but it should not be. It should be an ongoing process talking about issues of governance, of resources, distribution, involvement, inclusivity, etc. Now, why are we so keen about the electoral process? It is because our good and our interests are at stake. In sending out invitations for this two-day conference and in the write-up, which we see in the program, we are looking at the issue of people having aspirations and how do politics, how do elections respond to these aspirations. And if we want to know about the people's aspirations, then we look at the campaign posters. The politicians are very clever. They know our aspirations and they talk about them and they say, we are going to do this, we are going to do that. The invitation also and the introduction to this conference also talks about issues of development of the society. And all of us have these personal aspirations and we are interested in development. What people are looking for is a meaningful life. A life, if I go to the Bible, John 10:10, where it says, Jesus has come that we may have life and have it more abundantly. Now, in the African indigenous setup, I mean, we cannot live in that time because we have been born much, much after, but we can learn. And I like drawing an example, and I use this very often, about the Akan of Ghana. They had the dynastic kind of rule where it was passed to within the family. But that's not what I want to look at now. What I want to look at is what the people expected of their leader. And it's very significant that whoever was taking office did it as a public event. People gathered at the public square because it's their issue, it is their business. And it didn't matter, even children were there. And one question we would ask ourselves is, why is it that in the African traditional setups, children would not be involved in issues like death, war, because this was taboo. But among the Akan, the issue of governance is a public affair. All are present. And the one who is taking leadership takes an oath of allegiance. And the person promises or takes an oath that there are things they are going to do for the people. Simple things. That the person will have time for the people, he'll be available or will not be greedy, and that they will consult. And a very important thing among these people is that if you don't deliver, then we are going to call you back. I see this as a scenario where religion, because the cultural way of life is very much intertwined with religion, you cannot separate them. Even this affair of somebody taking office, of being the ruler, and that he can be recalled if the people are not satisfied, all of this has got religious undertones. So this is a scenario where there is intertwining between religion and governance or politics, and where it looks like there's inclusion of everybody. But we do not want to glorify this, because we know that as long as there is life, as long as there is society, there will be a rotten potato, a rotten tomato here and there. But the principle we gather from here is quite interesting and useful. And I'm looking at it that where then did we come to find that religion marginalizes? And the earlier presenter has done a good job on that. And I just want to add my voice and say that the situation we have talked about among the Akan, it changed. In the last 2 centuries, when Africa was opened up to colonialism especially, And colonialism, there's a very thin line again between colonialism and Christianity. The reason for Europe coming to Africa at that time was pegged on the 3 C's: Christianity, commerce, civilization. And the Christianity that was brought into the continent, it divided the people. Yesterday, I was there, the morning session, the afternoon one, I was partially in, but the presenters then raised very important issues about this, that Christianity divided the people into denominations, into regions. And it was seen as a move of dividing and ruling the people. So it was not an election process, but we can see clearly that the people are divided, and then marginalization comes in. Yes, you do not belong to my faith. If I come from this part of Kenya, this is likely to be my denominational tradition, or even my faith tradition. Because the areas where the Christians, the missionaries settled, got education, got civilization, and I say this with the inverted commas. And then when we read literature, it says that the Muslim-dominated regions lagged behind. And this term goes with marginalization, because they did not get education, formal education, so they did not enjoy a development. And again, I want to put that in inverted commas. And this divides a country. This is developed and this is not developed. But I also want to ask the question, who sets the agenda? Who says I am developed or I am not developed? Because a lot of times my aspirations or the individual aspirations may not necessarily be what the macro defines as development, but we cannot help it. Christianity, therefore, divides the people according to denominations, according to religions, and Islam-dominated regions are regarded as not developed. Now, this scenario goes on to play, especially in the time of independence. Kenya is getting independence in the early 60s, and there is a lot of talk about Africanization, the late 60s, even at the time of independence. And who is it that gets into office? I don't have the exact figures with me, but the first cabinet of this country in 1963, it was dominated by Alliance boys. Now, here we are getting the element of men and women as well, and women then do not feature at the time of independence in key positions. And if we are talking about marginalization and we are talking about aspirations and development, then we have a lopsided independence cabinet. But I would go just back and say that the women who got an education, especially towards independence, it was mainly that they could be good wives to the husbands. And so we are in an environment now where we could say that Christianity and Islam as well, the place of women is not that distinct. It's more in the private sphere. It's a private affair, domestic, and they cannot participate effectively, or they are marginalized when it comes to issues of politics. Much as I talked about the Akan earlier, most of our communities are patriarchal and patrilineal. And we are aware of women who will not be accepted to stand for elections where they are born, because when she gets married, she doesn't belong here. And where she's married, they say, don't we have men here? Why is she coming to stand? So I'm looking at marginalization and religion, and we have women as one of that segment. And as I've mentioned earlier, education, formal education. Also, if you have it, then you are okay. If you don't have it, you are marginalized. The other group are the youth. African culture considers that they are not ripe enough to lead. I've not checked on who's in the audience right now, but I believe that there are those who have read the book, Margaret Ogola's book, On the River and the Source. And one of the reasons why the people in that novel were very unhappy when the colonialists came, administration is changing. One of the reasons they were not happy is because the district officers, the district commissioners sent to the regions in Kenya were very young boys. And the elders would look at them, young, white boys. They would say, what do they understand about our culture? And what is it that they will give us? Okay, modernity constitutions are dismantling this myth, and youth are getting an opportunity. I'm very keen on how some of them are going to perform when you are a woman and you are a youth. How is it going? I know there's this girl in Kericho, I think. Again, as I said, for Martha Karua, this is a space to watch. So religion will discriminate against youth, especially religion looked at from African culture. That too young, not ripe enough to lead, and not ripe enough to provide leadership. Okay, we are also familiar with this adage that an old man who is seated will see what a young man who is standing will not even see. But given the times that we are in, I think there's a need to listen to youth. There's need for opportunity for youth. The other area where I see as marginalization, and it has to do with or the link to religion and even politics, is disability. African culture again considers disability as having a spiritual angle. Yes, you are not disabled for no reason. There must be a divine reason for this, and probably a bad omen. And Rumo is visually challenged. He's written a book, and he says that in the African tradition, the disabled were either killed or they were hidden from the public. And even today, I know we've made a lot of progress. Excuse me, let me sip some water. But when we are talking about religion and marginalization and electioneering, we cannot overlook element of disability. And then a giant is economic marginalization. I don't know what is going to be used internationally now. We talk about, oh, these people live below $1. You cannot even quantify the dollar now. Look at what the last few months have done with regard to fuel and issues about fuel. They have implications on the prices of basic commodities. Economically marginalized. And here, it is not men, it is not women, it is not children, it is a giant. And politicians, especially at time such as this, they take advantage of this marginalization, economic marginalization. And they will, politicians, electioneering, they'll pose as people of faith. And I'm using the word pose. I have no ability, capability, or anything at all to determine who is a person of faith or who is not, because faith issues are also very, very deep. Those scholars of religion know that it is so deep that we can actually not even describe it. We cannot even describe religion. But when you pose as a person of faith, as a person who is religious, and you go to church and you talk to the people there, they are going to give you audience, they are going to give you hearing. And so it is important to pause as a person of faith if you are standing for elections. Politicians also are very keen on being bedfellows with religious leaders. My sister earlier talked about Margaret Wanjiru, Mutava Musimi. Yes, these are politicians who are also religious leaders. But I'm also looking at it from the point of view of religious leaders who dine, and when we use the word dine, it's very symbolic, with religious leaders. And sometimes politicians will do this because that will give them mileage. Later, I'm going to, later, but very soon, I'm going to talk about how using the pulpit and used in a wider perspective, or using religion and religious leaders, how it can blind the people. He or she, this politician, has been to church or has met a religious group, and then they come to our village because of our economic disadvantage or marginalization. They are not telling us ideas about our aspirations. They are not telling us ideas about development, but they are giving us little things. Where I come from in Western Kenya, the word which is being used is that they are giving you unga. And it's for that day. The women who are already marginalized are getting lentils, they're getting salt. Very, very temporal things, but taking advantage of our economically marginalized situation. The youth are in the campaign trail. Yes, they've come from university, they don't have a job. They would like to be in school, they cannot be in school because of economic challenges. They are in the campaign trail and they are used for various reasons. If we talk about the post-election violence 2007, 2008, who were the most visible, who were the most disadvantaged, who suffered, many, everybody, but more so youth. The disabled, I think we've just talked about them. Just like my colleague earlier, she finished on a point on what lessons can we learn? How can religion empower the people, especially at a time such as this? And the first one is, for me, is how can religious leaders help the people to appreciate their dignity of self? Because I am the reason why we are having the elections. Because without us, everybody, the population, and so the issue of self-dignity and religious leaders can use this, because whether it is Islam, whether it is Christianity, we owe it to the Creator. We are not here of our own. I asked just at random, what do you, I asked just a few people, what expectations do you have of your religious leaders, especially at this time of electioneering? And some of the suggestions that have come up include civic education, because statistics in Kenya indicate that about 98% of us obliged to a particular faith tradition. So we are in touch with our faith leaders on a very, very regular basis. But at times such as this, it is an opportunity for civic education. Civic education, which encourages us to be alert on what is going on, to be present, to listen, and even to vote. The vote is a very, very powerful tool. Regardless of questions that we might ask about rigging and what have you, once you have cast your vote, you have played your role. The other thing which I heard from the people is that religious leaders should not flirt with politicians. The word flirt is very weighty, F-L-I-R-T, that they should not flirt with politicians. We know is maybe young boys and girls who flirt with each other. They are not serious. So religious leaders should not flirt with politicians, because how will the people, how will the population be able to distinguish between the religious leader and the politician? Because the religious leader, and that's another suggestion I got, that the religious leader is seen as moral authority. And if you flirt with a politician who today will say this and will say the other, then even the moral authority is compromised. In other words, that the religious leader should be the voice of the people, especially at times such as this. That the religious leader should be able to point out the ills of the society. Henry Okulu, in his book, The Church and the State, Religion and Politics, I think he has done 2 books. He says that the religious leader is the conscience of the society. It is also proposed that the religious leader, at times such as this, when there is election hearing, they should preach equity and even equality. And we have already pointed out that there are many situations where we are marginalized. We've already pointed out these areas, and that it is the responsibility of religion to preach equity and even to practice equity. So that is the other point, that the faith bodies should set example of providing opportunity and room for those that could be counted as marginalized in leadership, in their development agenda. Where are the women? Where are the youth? Where are the people with the disability? Where are the poor? And how are they being removed from these marginalized positions? That religious leaders should not wait until the campaign agenda is heating up for them to be present. That with all the presence and with all the big numbers that they have at their disposal, as membership, as attending religious meetings and religious services, they should make it an ongoing agenda. Talking about leadership, talking about issues of equity, how we should not be marginalized, that this should be an ongoing agenda, and that the religious institutions have it already for themselves, because we go to churches, we go to mosques, and we are very many. They should also encourage caucuses of people of faith. I know in 2007, 2008, Women of Faith, I was invited to join that group, issued statements. They went into the villages just to talk about peace and reconciliation and to ask deep questions as to why have we gotten ourselves to this trench and how can we get out of it. So caucuses of people of faith, youth, men, women, all of us together, that the religion has got this opportunity. As I finish, the theme of this conference is how can religion be, is it a bridge or a bridge builder, or is it a roadblock? And I want to just cast my thoughts on the bridge. The bridge joins one end to another. And it is because without this bridge, we cannot move to the other side. And I want to appreciate those who came up with this theme, that even when we talk about religion as serving as a bridge or a bridge builder, it is very symbolic because this is sustaining. And that's why I want to add what I've said earlier, that it is a process, this is ongoing. religion as a roadblock, we have noted, yes, that is possible. But I was also looking at the roadblocks that we have in our country, literal roadblocks. Like you're traveling to Mombasa and there'll be like 7, 8 roadblocks. A lot of times they are just mounted anywhere, anytime. The police will change their position where they are today. But I'm told there are places where they put the roadblock because it is strategic. What I'm saying is, if we can promote religion to be the bridge builder and not the roadblock, and religion has got more to offer. And that's why I want to appreciate that when you say, when it is disadvantages, it is just a roadblock. There's a lot more that pulls us together than religious differences. The agenda, or the human agenda, is big and should go beyond these areas of marginalization. My last statements are that elections come and go, but the people remain. And their faith carries them through. And so religion should address issues of governance. And if that is to be the case, then it should be inclusive, it should be ongoing, and it would have addressed the issues that matter to the people most. And what is really of value to a human being? It is peace, coexistence, community, and having our aspirations met. So my parting word is that religion has got many prongs. It can build and it can also break. But because it's so present, it has so many adherents, it is an opportunity that can be used to bring governance to a reality. Yes, elections are coming and they go and they leave the people. And let the elections and let religion bring realization of the people's aspirations. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Getui, for that wonderful presentation that has made me question so many things. Like, for example, we are told that the youth are leaders for tomorrow. And at the same time, you have to, in the presentation, you have said that religion still discriminates the youth. So I wonder which leaders are they talking about? From the two presentations, there are some lessons learned that the presenters have shared with us. From the first presentation, we have heard about the one lesson learned is that conflict analysis needs to be done. And the other point was impartiality and neutrality should be promoted among the religion in the religion. Then the religious leaders need to build trust with the participants, because right now they are going to bed with the politicians and singing their tunes. So people are just wondering, where are our religious leaders? Are they in this party or the other party? So they need to build trust with their people and also practice impartiality. And then from the second presentation from Professor Getui, we have heard that she has a lot of lessons learned. There is one that how can religious leaders appreciate the dignity? Then the religious leaders need to have civic education where they educate people on how to vote. The third one is the religious leaders should stop flirting with the politicians. They have religious leaders have a moral authority and they are the voice of the people. The fourth point that I got is that faith bodies should set examples to create an opportunity for those who have been marginalized, that is the women, youth, disabled, and the poor. We'll go to the chat section and I will see, let me see which questions are there so that I can present it to the speakers. There's one comment from Aki Ali. He's saying that religion and politics are always locally and globally intertwined to drive interest and access to power in certain African society during election pressure. During election pressure, many families get broken due to the difference in religious and political ideologies and sides. Thank you, Aki Ali, for that. We have, there is one that says that I'd like to hear from both participants about the current nomination of Martha Karua as possible deputy president in Kenya. On the one hand, it is celebrated as historic, and on the other, the media coverage is focusing not on her professional achievement, but rather on private things. That is the hair, age, clothes, single mother with children, old photos, etc. Is this progress or more of the same, somehow both? There will be a religious angle to portray her, but this is not very prominently done. Is there a specific reason for that? There's a question here to both participants, to both presenters, that is Professor Mary and Rahma. We can start with Professor Getui.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope I got the question well. I think we must appreciate that given our history, given our culture, given our politics, the position that Martha Karua has now is a step forward. I think that we cannot ignore. Yes, none of us will be 100% received. And remember, where we are now, it is a competition, it is a contest. And as much as possible, anything that anybody could use to bring their opponent down, they will use it. I'm told of a situation where this person was making very, very good progress in the campaign. And the opponent was not able to make much progress. And I guess they must have used their lieutenants and cracked their heads on what do we do. And they said, we will use the profession of this person to bring them down. It was not true. Now, I'm not very well informed about it, but this was a pharmacist, was making a lot of good progress. And the people decided, the opponent decided that they were going to use the profession to bring them down. So what did they do? they told the people, when you go to the chemist, that particular chemist, you sometimes get your dawa from the front counter, but sometimes they go to the back. Why do you think this chemist or this pharmacist, why do they go to the back? And a theory was hatched that there is some bad things that they do there. They contaminate your medicine, they lace it with other things, and that you sometimes hear of people who have disappeared, or of babies children who disappear. No, those are the ones that they use at the back of the room to make your medicine. I'm just trying to say, those who are pharmacists would know that they go to the back sometimes, like maybe it's a village pharmacy, because that is where the fridge is, and that's where they have kept certain medicines. So there's nothing evil about that. But this was used, and for the common person, they take it and they say, oh, that is the case. That is where our missing persons end. That's where Urogi goes on. Then we are not going to vote for this person. So when I don't like you, or when you are my opponent, I'm going to use lies. I'm going to use you, your achievements or your weaknesses, and those are what I'm going to hammer on. So when we see all that is being said, or that will be said about mother, this is a campaign, and we need to use anything to discriminate, because the elections are discriminating, so that I look like I am the superior or I am the better person. Whatever the case, I think this is this is historic, and it's going to change the landscape of this country. And Martha and several other women that are in the race, I think this is an opportunity. Yeah, I think let me stop there. Then maybe I'll come back later. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Rahma, do you have anything to add?
Okay. Just like what Professor has said, the other thing that we need to appreciate, that apart from the opponents, we also need to appreciate that this is a patriarchal society where we always want to see women being at the top. And this could be one of the reasons why such propagandas and flyers are more prominent out there about Martha Karua, because her Honorable Martha Karua has been a leader who has been championing for several reforms, but all those things that she has been doing are not being recognized, are not being highlighted. But what we can see is the side that it's the side of her personal life that has nothing to do with her being a leader. So that could be an addition to what I want to put.
Thank you very much. I hope you're the one who asked the question. You have been answered. I will go to the next question. That is, how can interreligious forums support inclusive elections where the needs of the society are focused instead of following agendas of the people in power who are benefiting from marginalization, polarization, and instrumentalization of identities? I will ask our panelists, maybe one can answer, whoever is ready. Professor Mary, do you have any answer, or Rahma?
Okay, I will. I'll try and answer that. I remember in my presentation I mentioned clearly about the role of interreligious organizations or councils or leaders, and they clearly stated that the interreligious leaders or institutions or councils, their effort needs to be holistic. For example, in the dialogues that they conduct in terms of peace building and advocating for peaceful election, they need to address the underlying social inequalities. But for a long time, those dialogues have failed to address such issues, and they are disconnected from the social, the realities on the ground. That's what I want to say.
Thank you, Rahma. I can see Professor is trying to read the question. I can repeat it.
No, I've read.
How can
I have read it. Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I think interreligious forums are very important because apart from maybe going there for a specific agenda, like now we are doing elections, I think there are opportunities for us to get to understand one another. The prejudice and the stereotypes and the marginalization that we have, a lot of times is because we are not exposed. It's because we do not understand the other side of the story. So for me, I think these are a very useful forum. All we could urge and plead for is that they should be open, they should be objective, and they should rise above the common person or the common noise, and they should be concerned about the good of the society. Because when we talk about the people's aspirations, the people's aspirations are faith informed, but a lot of times issues of water, issues of environment, issues of education, issues of wellness, issues of health, they are human issues. And so the interreligious fora are important, and let them be ongoing. Let them not be like putting off the fires. And if they gain the support and the confidence of the people, then they are going to make an impact. And what people are looking for is confidence in leadership, and I think the interreligious fora are the institution or one of the institutions that can do this. When we were meeting as women of faith, we actually did not ask questions of denomination, questions of faith, but we were concerned about where is our country going and how did we get ourselves here and what can be done. Friendships are made, networks are made, and this is what we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor, for that. We have another comment that says that the main challenge is that religious organizations have lost their focus and roles in the society as a moral and spiritual focal points. They have turned into money-oriented schemes that mint money from the politicians and use the pulpit to spearhead political agendas of their friends and castigate their foes. Thank you very much for that. It was highlighted in Professor Getui's presentation. We have another anonymous question from anonymous participant he or she is asking, what is the role of unity among women in addressing the issue of marginalization? I'll direct that question to Professor Mary Getui because she presented something on that. Professor Getui, the floor is yours.
Thank you again. Before I come to that question, on the issue of the religious leaders, there was a time in this country when a pastoral letter was issued from the Catholic bishops or from the National Council of Churches of Kenya, the country stopped to listen. I just want to say, who is there who is going to say something and we stop to listen because they have a point? And you cannot have people stop to listen if there is no consistency. Now, the unity of women, sometimes it has been said that women are their own worst enemies. Yes and no, but again, I think this is something that has been used to divide the women even more. I don't think it's just the unity of women only, but I think unity of purpose. I think it was last week at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa, we had a session which brought together FIDA and Mzalendo. There were several lawyers there. They were talking about the 2/3 majority. And it came out very clear that when we talk about the 2/3, it is not just a women issue, it is a national issue. And I'll repeat what I said earlier, that it's an issue which has got to do with the well-being of humanity. Yes, there is strength in numbers, but for me more it is the strength in purpose. Unity of women, I think, is very, very wide. We need to see the role of women as the mothers. Unity where socialization of families also comes in. Unity where we work together with men. Right now, I'm in a study which is looking at the role or the participation of women in church life. And one of the proposals which has come up is that we need to have both men and women who champion the women cause or the humanity cause. So it is issues of formation, it is issues of working together, it is issues even of visibility. I have a friend tried her hand in elective politics, didn't get it, again because of patriarchy, and they would say, Mama, we know that you will do something for us, but we have also been told that you are an outsider, you are only married here, and because you are a professional, highly qualified, we don't even know whether you stay here. The poisoning that is done. But one thing is, in that particular area or in that particular geographical space, her visibility is evident, and she's an opinion leader in one way or another. So let's have common purpose. Let us work together, and it's not just a work of women alone. It's a work of humanity. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor. There's one comment that says that I agree with Professor Getui's point on self-dignity because of the principle of the image of God. Of course, there is an important question about the real motivation for being a religious leader. And we have another comment. Religion is a bridge builder by empowering the weak and challenging the moral political influence of the government. We have a last question that what is the role of competency in addressing the issue of marginalization in the religious and political circles? Rahma, would you like to answer that question?
Please, I didn't get it clearly.
What is the role of competency in addressing the issue of marginalization in the religious and political circles?
Okay, I go back again to my presentation that I indicated that the religious leaders need to be supported in terms of capacity building for them to be able to address and use the pulpit to address some of those issues during campaigns, during elections. They need to be aware of the grievances, of the issues that their followers are facing in order to be able to address them accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahma. What is your, okay, Professor, you're there. Thank you.
Yes, I don't know what competency means, but I want to look at it that each one of us is competent in something or another. Those of us who read the Bible, Moses was asked, what is it that you have in your hand? So I want to think that we are gifted differently. We are in different situations. And for me, that is the opportunity. There are those of us who could do well as governors or as members of parliament or as MCAs. Then there are those of us who they cannot do that if we do not play our part. And for me, the fact that I am a voter is competency in politics, because if I don't vote and if I don't take interest in knowing what are the people who are offering themselves, what is it that they are capable of doing, or what can I, making informed decisions. So I think as issues, as far as competency is concerned, each one of us has got some competency of some sort. And I think for the kind of people that could be in this conference, we are competent enough to talk to provide civic education to our youth, to our parents, to those that we consider marginalized. And even, again, I think each one of us is marginalized in one way or another. For example, if I am that kind of person who believes that no woman can lead, that is not right. If I'm that person who is going to get into stereotyping, even that is not good. So we are all competent in one way or another. And then I think the other question was, I hope I got it well, on who is a religious leader. There are those who are called, there are those we vote for, but I also want to think that each one of us is a leader in our own way. There are very many questions, and for me, who teaches religion, and we have shared this with many of my students, my classes, that religion has now become a business where I can actually start a church and I make a business out of it, and I will thrive depending on how I package my product. But we could also be conservative, we could also be traditional, and say, and go back to that African tradition where religion is a solemn, is sacred, and it has to do with values, value system. Therefore, I will be expected to be familiar or conversant with the value system and to promote it. But I also want to say that religious leaders are human, and humans are open to mistakes and to err. So we're not talking about perfection, but we are talking about doing our best in environments at all times. Asante.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you very much, Rahma. But before we end the session, I would like to ask our panelists to give us their parting shots. Professor Mary gave us her parting shot, but she can also give us another parting shot, and also Rahma. Whoever is ready can start. Rahma, are you ready?
Okay. For me, I'll say the religious leaders need to be impartial so as they are able to act as arbitrators when need be. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahma. Professor?
What I want to say is that this is an opportunity for us to look at history, to see what lessons can we get, not to allow ourselves to be marginalized and not to marginalize. And whatever it is that we consider as our competency in the election processes, let us make use of it, because each one of us has an opportunity to make a difference. Get out there, stand for an elective post, get out there and campaign in the sense of course, campaigns could be rowdy and what have you, but I'm not meaning that. But we have opportunity to share, even in our small Christian communities, our prayer cells, on what is it that we are looking for. And also to put our leaders to task, because as the organizers of this conference put it, that people have got aspirations and we are looking for development that which will make our lives better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, panelists, for that parting shot. Elections come and go, but you and I will remain. So let's think about that. Thank you very much for your time and the interactive session you have had. I will now hand it over to Matthias. Over to you, Matthias.
Thank you, Mika. Thank you, Professor Mary. Thank you, Rahma, for these presentations, for helping us with all the questions that have arose from them. I think the longer we do this conference, the more we get into that this is a hot topic, that this is a difficult discussion that is to be held, especially in election times here in Kenya. We are very sorry that we have this strong Kenyan perspective right now, because unfortunately the participants from other countries of the region are facing difficulties in participating. So we've had someone who fell ill, we've had other ones who are actually having literally difficulties with talking about elections. So this seems to be a red thread that is going through. However, I would like to point out that we are very proud to have participants and attendees from all over the world, actually, not just from this region. We are covering Germany, we are covering Indonesia, Turkey, we are covering the United States. We have students and professors there. We have people from all walks of life. So welcome to this session. I would like to ask you to dedicate 5 minutes to give us your feedback. There will be options in the afternoon as well for that, but I would love to learn more about how did you like it? What would you recommend to us to get better? On that note, we will return with the afternoon session at 2 p.m. and we will go on a break here for now. So enjoy your lunch. Have faithful prayers if you are doing that on this Friday today. We will see each other again at 2 p.m. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.